2022. My name is Afsana Rahim Lakhani, signing in from Lisboa. I am the moderator for today's evening. This webinar will help you understand the upcoming changes, answer all your queries, and work out for the optimal route for you. TLG's webinar brings together experts from residency and citizenship sector, property market, and media. The key topics that will be discussed would be properties and investment in Portugal, the details of Golden Visa and its success to date, overview of the real estate market, and what makes Portugal as most attractive option for the EU destination. So before we dive into our webinar, let's do a quick temperature check. We would request you all to keep your audio and video when the other speaker is talking. Kindly keep your phones on silent mode so that you can have most out of this webinar. If you have any questions during the presentation, please type it in the comment section and we will have time for the questions towards the end. So let us start with our webinar by watching a short video on Portugal.
Why do so many investors fall in love with Lisboa? Easy. There's no other city that combines this beautiful view with the beauty of these numbers. Lisboa is the closest European capital to the United States, South America and Africa, with 250 departures every day, and being the only capital in mainland Europe sharing the same time zone with the British capital, with more than 300 days of sunshine throughout the year. Lisboa is surrounded by more than 20 wonderful golf courses, only 4 train stations away from the beach, and just a 1-hour drive from Nazaré, home of the biggest waves on the planet. Selected to be the 2020 European Green Capital, Lisboa transforms ecological concerns into reality, being the first European city to have a municipal fleet where 100% of light vehicles are electric, a huge recharging network with more than 540 stations, and 100% of the city lights running with LED technology. Innovation and adaptation are part of the mindset, with 90 colleges that produce 30,000 graduates a year, with 60% of them in business, tech or math degrees. No wonder Lisboa attracts global investment from all around the globe into our entrepreneurial community, an ecosystem dedicated to helping new businesses where 2 new startups are created every day. With more than 100 co-working spaces spread all over Lisboa and with a 90-kilometer bike lane that reaches all corners of the city. It's so easy to enjoy the view commuting to work using one of the 2,150 shared bikes and 5,500 soft mobility vehicles. How about this? Lisboa is well known as a city that embraces diversity and welcomes all kinds of races, ethnicities, and religious beliefs. All that in a city with 7 Michelin-starred restaurants, and this sunset included. So, how about investing in Lisboa? Lisboa, the beautiful side of business.
Thank you for the video. As appealing the video sounds and Portugal is in providing the best investment solution and immigration options, we have our experts to talk more about it. So let's begin by welcoming our 3 amazing speakers today. Today in our panelists, we have Vasco Manacas. Vasco is a managing director at Central Lisbon Real Estate. And our second panelist is Timothy Chuma. Timothy is Director for Sales and Operations of Prime Land Ventures. And our final panelist is Rahim Lakhani, who is the Asset Manager for the Lakhani Group Capital SCR SA in Lisbon. Thank you everyone for taking time out for this webinar. Before we begin, let me give a short introduction about our first panelist before the forum is open for everyone. So the first panelist is Vasco Manacas. Vasco, as I mentioned, is a Managing Director at Central Lisbon. He has vast experience in real estate development, valuation, and consulting. In addition, Vasco has also gained expertise in areas like management and financial consulting, human capital development, organization transition, change management. Thank you so much, Vasco, for being here. The forum is all yours.
Well, thank you very much. Thanks for having me to this afternoon. I was got a bit on going back and forth during my vacation period. So this, but this is always nice to be with you guys. And basically, we know, the golden visas in Portugal, and going straight into our theme of the panel, that is which kind of properties qualify for the golden visa since this year, since 2022. And rather than taking a very difficult approach, normally I tend to say there are a number of reasons that remain the same from the previous years. Portugal continues to be a country on the top. It has been always never has been the first in terms of peace and safety and security, but it has been always on the top four. I think in the past 10 years there was once it was on the fifth, and then it has changed between second and fifth for a long time. So the health situation is also an attractive, although system is very demanded these days. And finally, in terms of tourism, it's also a very demanded place. It has been increasing, and it was actually what is happening this month is a response to that, because it has been going back to the numbers back in 2019 in a matter of weeks. And that was to some extent quite unexpected. I mean, people were expecting some takeover, but not this fast. So it's the recovery is coming back, and so I would say the three main reasons why people can actually come to Portugal, that includes, I'd say, it's a matter of lifestyle. And to that, I continue to say, although there are a number of ways of getting the golden visa, the property is probably the easiest one and the cleanest one, because it's, you put the money and you can see the asset on the other end. And normally it could be, there is a valuation of the asset over a period. Typically for Portugal, the valuation of real estate follows the same trend as UK and France and most of the European countries. That is, it goes roughly, depending on which formula you use, between 2.7 and 4.1% a year. And this is year after year. So normally it's kind of 2 points above inflation. And if we take, when you buy a real estate asset, you don't buy it, if you don't buy it for speculation, you buy it for long term. And long term for a property could be 20 years, a short term could be 5, and a medium term 10 to 20. So meaning that on this sense, on long time series, actually the price increase of the properties follow those trends, even if there are some bumps on the way and some downs and whatever. If we take it on a long time series, that's what the type of valuation that comes along. This to say that real estate is a good way to enter the market in terms of golden visa, because you'll have a guarantee for the money that you are putting. So you're getting good value for the money you're putting in a golden visa as you buy an asset that is reliable. And this, having said that, I would say now, regarding assets properly, because there is a lot of saying that normally even in the international markets, people say, oh, we cannot no longer buy in Lisbon and Porto and so on. It's quite different from that. I normally take the different approach. That is, basically, golden visas are roughly the same as before, with one exception. And the exception is you cannot buy, you can buy, but you cannot qualify for the golden visa properties that are with a residential license on what is here shown in this map in the gray area. So basically, can we go back? Can we go back? Yes. This gray area in the map is what is called high density or high developed area, and that's where residential is no longer applicable. Okay. In the blue area, dark and light blue, residential continues to apply. Okay. And commercial applies all across gray, blue, light, etc. So commercial, whatever form it takes, could be office, could be touristic, could be parking space, could be anything, applies across the full country. So basically, and going back to what has changed and what does not qualify, is residential in the gray areas, and that's all. And then you have, I'd say, two areas to consider. You have the gray area, which is considered a high developed area, which is the standard, where you need to invest 500,000 euros. But if the property requires works and or it's located and it's more than 30 years old and is located what is called ARU, that is ARU. It's every village, every city has their own ARU. That is normally the historical parts of the historical areas in each zone, where you can actually get a reduction on the 500,000. There is a 30% reduction, and it goes from 500 to 350,000 euros. And if we move to the blue areas or to the islands, then the standard price goes down from 500,000 to 400,000. And it applies the same logic when it's the blue. In this case, this is the blue area that is called low density. We talk about low density means less than 100 inhabitants per square kilometer. So all this blue area that you see here, they have less than 100 people per 1 square kilometer. Actually, some of these areas that's as low population as they have 25, 30, 40 people by square kilometer. So meaning that only the interesting part on this is that normally the villages or the main cities, they become points of interest. And that's where we can sometimes find very interesting properties for the golden visa in the low density areas, which go 400,000 as a standard. And then they apply the same type of logic as if it's an old property, more than 30 years, and needs renovation. So we can buy, the client can buy the property, can contract the works, and make the 2080 golden visa in these areas. Because it's a low density area, one should not expect a big return on investment, but capital appreciation will be there. During the time, we cannot expect a lot of return on investment, although some of these cities have universities, and you could buy properties close to these universities for renting. Still, it's going to be, you need to be prepared to have a good appreciation over time for the value of the asset, so keeping the capital value and increasing it, but low return on investment during the 5 years period. And having said that, there is now that's the standard. Now let's go for some of interesting things eventually. And then we have, let's go back to the gray area, where when we say that the law says that properties with residential license do not apply, it's different in the Portuguese law from saying that you cannot buy a house that qualifies. And the difference is that some houses, depending on the setup, some houses, some properties that are traditionally could be also residential, but because of their license, they have what is called a touristic license. This goes for villas, apartments, any unit that is considered touristic. And that is the case of, I mean, for instance, one of the projects from Lakhani Group here near Lisbon is exactly qualifies like this. It is a villa, but the license is not residential. Therefore, it's not an exception to the law. It falls exactly into the law. And this is the kind of thing, there are small subtleties that you need to work with the right people here in Portugal, so you can actually find good opportunities if you want to have situations like that are, let's say, this having houses with a touristic license. There are not many. There are very few because they require a special framework, legal framework, to actually get those licenses. And it happens that the Fort Venues, for instance, one of them, okay, interesting one near Lisbon, and the same thing applies in other parts of the country. But this is the subtlety that we need to consider. And second part or the third part, I think Rahim will probably explain you better in the end. But the second part is this: you have in this particular case of Fort Vene, you have the possibility of using it to live in there, or use it to rent it out as a touristic unit, or you can go to the use it partially and rent it out partially. Basically, I think, as I mentioned, when we have here, one thing that I was saying is this: the incomes for the properties, they go from 3, eventually 2, in some cases. If we're talking about residential luxury, residential Lisbon, high up-class areas, you probably even can get 2 or 2.5. It's very capital protection is very high, but the return on investment is very low. 10% is normally, you can find that for some shops, or you can find that on subprime areas. So could be residential, but could be normally in areas where there is not too much guarantee that tenants will pay regularly their rent. So there's going to be a delta risk associated when you get to 10%. What is normal? I mean, this is like any other investment. I mean, you have a higher income, you have a higher risk. There is not much to go around this one. Regarding still from as I think I covered that one, that is you have the possibility of buying anything from a parking space, like a piece of concrete with a white painting, squared or rectangle, qualifies for the golden visa, as well as a piece of land, as a nice villa, as office or shop or warehouses. So anything that has a land registration number can qualify, provided that is not an exception. And well, this is general stuff. I don't think this is, I mean, why Portugal, and what is basically, it's an interesting situation for people who actually would like to try a new lifestyle and are preparing kind of a safety network for the future. And this could be interesting because they can have for their family, and there are two levels that could bring their parents and their children as well, provided that they are the supporters of the family. And they only need to stay 7 days a year, so it's good for a transition period. So you can use it just for traveling across Europe without a passport in the Schengen space. And eventually, last part, if you finally do the transition into Portugal, you can start working with the residence permit that you get with the golden visa. So you can actually transition from being an outsider to become a member of the community, and you have all the legal and healthcare and schools and everything on your side. So you don't need to fight against bureaucracies and so on to get hold of the different services and so on. And that's it from my point, I think, unless there is something else that Rahim, Afsana, you want me to cover something else?
No, absolutely. Thank you so much, Vasco, for this amazing presentation. And I think a lot of people had doubts earlier on how the areas are divided as per the new guidance and new rules that came up from 2022. And I think your explanation clears everyone's doubt with regards to what fits into 500,000, 350,000, 280, and every categories. So thank you so much for doing that and clarifying what are the benefits of having a golden visa and living in Portugal and buying the property. So thank you so much, Vasco. Before I move on, do we have any questions from the panelists for discussion here?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much again, Vasco, for that. You mentioned a few things that I think was very interesting. On that map that you had the blue areas, which are close to the coastal regions as well. Amongst the coastal regions that you have, is there a specific area that you believe is a better area for future investments? Because most of our clients now with Quinta de Portugal as well, but also are looking for developments near the beach. So being near the coastal regions would actually make a lot more interest than not. So are there any areas that you believe that one should look at specifically from the graph that you had showed earlier? Maybe you can go back.
If you put the map back again, it's easier to explain.
Sure.
Okay, so basically you have this just south of Setúbal. You have from Comporta down to Sines until the little gray area. This little gray area is the area of Sines Harbor.
Yeah.
Okay, that is considered highly developed.
That's highly developed. Yes, that's right.
Okay, so you should stay north of this area and going all the way north until Comporta. Gotcha. This is not the future. This is today. So this area is, as you well know, I mean, it's over 1 billion euros investment in different projects. I mean, probably close to 2.5 billion euros in different projects from different investment origins: France, States, Canada,
Switzerland,
Turkey. Lots of them. So this is what is called from Melite until Comporta. That's right. This area, this arch here. Mm-hmm. Then if we go south of Sines down to Algarve, I'd say this is The area near Algarve is already coming out. It will be for
Yeah,
the next 5 years.
probably.
And I'd say the one from south of Sines down to Odmira, that would be probably 5 to 10 years from now. That's when it's going to boom.
Yeah. So
That would
the
be my
question,
expectation.
the question I have is, of course, this will not be in the Aru. Okay, so this coastal region will not be in the Aru. That's for sure. So it will only benefit from the exemption of the 20% that you mentioned. But if it is a new development, will that still be qualified for the 280 program, or is it not possible for that? Because we develop villas, right? So would a new development qualify there, or it has to be like an older development that will qualify
A new development will qualify for 400,000.
for 400? Okay, so it's not the
If it is an old development,
yeah.
if it is an old building,
Mhm.
or it is in the Aru area,
Yeah.
and bear with me that you'll find some situations where you can actually get some areas here that are Aru.
Yeah.
If we go down to Rifan into these old fishermen villages, and we have, depending on the size of the project, and you have plenty of old projects that are require some revamping, which actually could be an option. Some hotels that are abandoned. So I mean, it's not. So there are different things. Of course, then if you have let's say a big plot of land, a big project that was built only 10%, 40 or 50 years ago, there are several things like that, especially in the Odmira area and bit north and south. You can have in the same situation, you could have the revamping of the old structures.
Okay.
Eventually, you could qualify for 280, and
Gotcha.
anything you put there on top of it new, I mean, that was in the project but was never built, it will go into 400 in the
Makes
same
sense.
project. But,
We need to talk after the webinar to get some secrets out. Yeah.
yeah, no, but
Awesome.
that's what it is. You see, it's kind
Yeah.
of, for instance, talking. But if we go, we're talking south. But for instance, we have a project that we can talk also out of the webinar. Very interesting. If you put the map there back again, if they can put it, it will be interesting because it's a unique project. It's here. You see Coimbra here. Coimbra is in the gray area. A small dot here in the middle of yes, exactly where we have the arrow. It's an area called Aldeias de Xisto, schist villages. Okay, we have 400 hectares, 402 hectares, with 60 old schisto houses with over 100 years old to recover. And it's a project that we can talk about because this qualifies for everything. It's a touristic project because the
Yeah.
only thing that makes sense is to rebuild the two villages
Mm-hmm.
and to further develop that and to make it a unique project because
Amazing.
recovering all these schist villages would be something completely
Yeah.
new. It would be, I mean, the villages have been recovered, but house by house, not recovering the lifestyle, the old lifestyle. And here we have 440 hectares, so something
Mm-hmm.
like 4 million square meters of land with already two villages done
Crazy.
and need to recover. So it's nice. It's something that is, when we talk about the near the sea, you have near the sea, and you
Yeah.
also have other things that are kind of hidden in the middle of the mountain that could be also to be considered. At least I think
Amazing.
it's worth the shot of looking at them.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I think your motto is let's build Portugal one golden visa at a time.
Yes.
That's awesome. Yeah, those were kind of my questions. Back to you, Sam.
Okay.
Yeah,
Hi,
thank you.
Vasco. I had a quick question more related to somebody who's maybe purchasing one or two properties and is more interested in what we'd call the more risky investment. How is Portugal as a country in terms of, is it a landlord friendly country or more of a tenant friendly country?
Good question.
That's a good question. It was an excellent question if I had an answer. Let me say it's kind of you have because it's not the answer is not a yes or no. If you talk about the current law, the current contracts, I'd say it's a fair, eventually landlord friendly law, but there is an heritage. And the heritage, as I mean, Rahim has already covered that for sure. He has already came across with different situations like that. That is old contracts. Old contracts are, let's say, they require a lot of patience, and they have what is called real rights. That means you cannot actually, they are very tenant friendly. So you may have a situation where you have someone paying 10 euros for an apartment, and you can do a lot, but it takes a lot of work to actually make it work. I mean, you can do a lot of things, all legal, nothing. Don't do like we have seen here. Some people that got, especially some international foreign investments, that they went bananas and they set fire to buildings and then they went to jail. There is no need for that. The reason is you can transition this 10 euros rental into the what is called NRAL, the new regulations of renting. It takes one letter and eventually a couple of weeks, a couple of months to transition. And then depending on the financial capability of the tenant, they may go through a 5 years or a 10 years transition period, meaning that they have a new rent, no longer 10 euros, it will be probably, I don't know, 15, 20, whatever. And it will grow over a certain period. And then suddenly, when it gets to the 10 years time, let's suppose the long time, then you can then put in the market. So you can negotiate a market value according to certain rules. Let's not get here into detail. If the individual, because of his financial capability, cannot pay that rental, the freguesia, that is kind of the parish, local, at the end it goes into the municipality. They're supposed to have a fund to cover up for the remaining of the rental to make it kind of market fair. Okay, so this is how it goes. So now we're talking about let's make some numbers. We're talking about the total houses in Portugal, or total registrations for urban registration in Portugal are in the range of 6 million. Okay, the number of contracts that are under these very small rentals are, or were, I don't even know how many they are now, but a couple of years ago they were about less than 100,000. So about 60,000 of them were the leftovers. Problem is, every time you come around with these leftovers, you need to breathe, take a tea, and start working. Take your sleeves out, roll them up, and start working. And be calm. And it's the law. There's nothing you can do to break the law. But within the law, there are a few things you will not make. I mean, when you buy something like that, you just know that you are buying also a lot of work. And again, talk about 6 million properties, and there are 60,000, or let's put it 100,000 contracts like that. There were 100,000 when this was transitioned the very first time 10 years ago.
Yeah,
Okay. Now they say it's about, normally it's people that are over 60, 65 years old, or they are handicapped people, or situations like that. So it's people that you need to take care of. So you cannot, but I'd say, give you two examples, two funny examples. Okay. How we solve problems like this. Because I think it's funny. One was probably Rahim knows the place near Marquês de Pombal in the Rua Castilho, big building. The lady was the only occupant of the building, the last tenant.
Prime property.
And it was a third floor. She had to walk up and down, no lift. The developer wanted to take her out. So we talked with the lady, tried to find out some agreement. The agreement was at the very end, very simple. She said, no, it's very simple. She wanted an apartment. She had an apartment with 400 square meters or 350 square meters. Okay. And she was paying something like this, I don't know, 10 euros, 15 euros, 20 euros, something like that. And then she wanted an apartment, 2 bedrooms, 1 bedroom for her and 1 for their grandchildren when they were visiting her. And then she wanted a big living and dining room, because she used to have for Christmas and for Easter, all the family and all the things coming to her house. And the last one is that there should be a parking facility nearby. So the developer looked around and said he decided to buy in Rua da Prata, in downtown, first floor. He did the works according to her specifications, and it was very close to the parking space of Praça da Figueira. So she moved there very happily. The developer was so happy that he decided not to cover. I mean, he was collecting 20 euros rental, but he decided not to collect anything because the lady was so nice. I mean, she had rights to stay there. And how it solved like this. I could tell you another one that is different. It's a different story, but it's also simple and faster. It was a gentleman. He was in his 70s. He was a widower. And the only thing, what he liked most was to shave himself every day, looking to the river. So he could move from the building, it's another situation, another building. He could move, provided that he was the new apartment, he could see the river when he was shaving. So sometimes it's not so difficult. The first one I told you, it's a legal action. And then the negotiation, it could be sometimes so simple and so funny that I tend to say, I don't have an answer, yes or no, for your question. Sorry, I took too long to answer.
No, it did definitely clarifies, and thank you very much for that, Vasco.
Okay. Thank you so much for sharing about your experience. I'm sure it's like really vast to be covered in this amount of time, but thank you so much, Vasco, for being here. We have our next panelist in the room, who is another dynamic personality. His name is Timothy Chuma. He's here. And currently, he serves as an director for sales and operations at Prime Land Ventures. He handles day-to-day execution of the company's mission and objectives. His entrepreneurial instincts and clarity of vision has carried multiple companies through rapid growth and progress. So let us give our forum to Timothy.
Thank you very much. We're moving across to Switzerland, which is where I'm based. And obviously, I guess the first question many will have is, how does Switzerland tie back to Portugal and obviously the golden visa? So I'll start off with just a brief into what Switzerland offers in terms of the real estate market as it stands after COVID, and then we'll go into what are the advantages of setting up in Switzerland, especially related to the Golden Visa. So if we could start the presentation in terms of next slide. Okay, this is a little about an organization that's focused on residency and immigration by property investment. That's across different jurisdictions. We work with obviously high net worth individuals, family offices, law firms, banks, and other investment firms in different jurisdictions in terms of assisting them with locating the right properties. Now going into the Swiss market as it stands, I've got a quotation that we use to illustrate some of the advantages of investing in Switzerland. If you could go to the next slide. So there's a quotation that goes, foreign property investments are the new Swiss bank accounts of the 21st century. But we go a step further and say Swiss property investments are the ultimate Swiss bank account and insurance in turbulent times and a turbulent world, as we've seen with COVID and the war that's going on at the moment. If you could go on to the next slide, I'll just jump into a bit of history about the Swiss real estate market and where we are and where we've come from. Switzerland really had its property bubble or property bubble burst some years back after the fall of the Berlin Wall and obviously the fall of the Soviet Union. This was because there's a lot of speculation at that time based on the potential boom that would come with unification of Germany, and banks at that time were quite lax. And as you can see from the small graph on the top left-hand side, you can see that drop that happened. This is in the mid-90s. And from that, a lot of Swiss investors went bust, a lot of Swiss developers, because there was a lot of overdevelopment. And with that, the Swiss National Bank brought in regulations that have controlled the supply of mortgage products, financing around real estate development. So we've seen from that time, as the market recovered, we have not had another drastic bust, as even when it came to 2008, when there was the financial crisis, Switzerland pretty much stayed at a steady pace. And that is one of the rules that's behind the Swiss National Bank. For the past 10 years, we've had quite an increase in terms of property prices in Switzerland. And that's mainly been driven by the stability of the Swiss economy, the stability of the Swiss franc. It's seen as a safe haven currency, a safe haven nation. It being neutral. And, you know, just to give you some numbers, over the past 10 years, certain areas have seen capital appreciation of, you know, over 50% over that time period. There is a lot of talk about the Swiss real estate market being a bubble and the potential of that bubble bursting. But that, as I said, has been since 2011. People have been talking about it. There's actually an index called the UBS Bubble Index. So it's by the bank UBS, and they've been tracking this since 2011, looking at where the market is and where the potential of it being a bubble and the bubble bursting. But even since then, and even through COVID, we've seen property increases. Engel and Volcker, the global real estate agency, has already stated in their presentation for 2022 that they're expecting further increases in the Swiss market. What is driving that? Obviously, safe haven, as I said, also a lot of direct foreign investment that has come through the different areas. Now, how does this tie back into the golden visa and obviously the Portuguese market? One of the things we do at Primeland Ventures is try and structure deals that are for the long term. And with that, what we normally do, especially for the large investments, I'll give an example. We had a group of families. So this was a small family office that wanted to take advantage of golden visa, but they wanted to make a hotel investment. So obviously they went out, purchased that. They then had that registered as a Swiss entity to take advantage of the low rates of tax that you pay out here in Switzerland. And what that allowed is they got their golden visa, which allows for obviously Europe and the Schengen states, but also then allowed them to as them having an entity operating in Switzerland, allow them to purchase Swiss residential property, which is only allowed for Swiss residents. You cannot purchase residential property if you're not resident in Switzerland. So until you get that, you wouldn't be able to, in most other circumstances, you can only go for commercial real estate as an international investor. So this is how we tie some of this, the golden visa with then investing. Also with that comes access to Swiss bank accounts, which is an area we also assist our clients with. So basically looking at the direction of investing in golden visas, especially in Portugal, one of the things you should be thinking about is how to diversify your risk. So obviously, if you've purchased a property, you've got your golden visa, it's looking at what is the next market. Now, if we could go to the next slide, which is just showing you where we are, what what's on offer. So we've got 4 different types of investments that you can do. The first one, which is on the top left-hand side, that's a hotel investment. Obviously, this is more commercial. The top right is multi-use. So this is a center that was opened recently, just after COVID restrictions were lifted. It's next to the airport and provides a conference facility, retail, residential, a hotel, and obviously office space. With this has come other developments around the airport, so definitely one to watch. Another one that has become quite popular is the bottom left is a villa, which is part of a co-investment. So what this is very similar to what the Lakhani group would be offering with some of their investments, where you get the villa, you get the 5-star hotel amenities, and you get to share in the ownership and profit. And obviously the other part you can have access to, which is the bottom right, is luxury trophy assets within Switzerland. So unfortunately, one of the issues with COVID was quite a few people passed away. And what that has meant is that, especially in this luxury market, you find there's assets, as the patriarch or the matriarch has passed away. The children no longer want to have this as something they use. So we're finding quite a lot of these luxury sort of trophy assets coming on board. And with having a golden visa, you then have easy access to these type of investments. So I think one of the things we tell any of our clients, the clients who come to us directly and ask, how can I move to Switzerland? We say the easiest way is to look at a golden visa program such as Portugal. Then after you secure that, then a lot of the doors that would be shut to you in Switzerland will open up. So this is something that we can definitely help you with in terms of in conjunction with the Lakhani group to have access to this, whether it's the real estate or the banking facilities. And obviously with that comes the finance as well. So that brings me to the end of my presentation. Thank you very much. And I'm open to any questions.
Thank you so much, Marty, for enlightening us about how the Swiss market works and quite of the facts were interesting, and it was enlightening as well. We have other panelists in the room. If you have any questions for Timothy, please go ahead.
Yeah, I would love to actually ask maybe a clarification here. You mentioned the strategy here on obtaining, but did I hear it correct that one has to be a resident of Switzerland to purchase a residential property? Was that did I hear that?
That is correct. For residential, you have to have some sort of a residency permit to
Gotcha.
then be able to purchase.
But could it be like a Portuguese residency permit you're saying, or it has to be a Switzerland residency permit?
It has to be a Swiss one.
Switzerland, yeah, exactly. Okay,
Yeah.
gotcha. So
but the advantage is because of the bilateral agreement between Switzerland and the Schengen states, registering in Switzerland to get your residency when you are a resident of a Schengen state is very straightforward.
Very straightforward, yeah. But maybe you can highlight also while you are here that, as we all know, Switzerland is not part of the European, passport, I guess, right? Or European. So when someone obtains a European passport, you're not automatically a citizen of Switzerland, right?
That is correct.
So what could be the process of obtaining a Swiss passport, because Swiss passport is also very, very strong. So is there a program that you guys offer also in addition to the European passport through the Portuguese program? Is there anything that you offer for someone who's looking at obtaining a Switzerland passport?
There's two routes to this. There's the fast route, which obviously is the more expensive, and that is what they call the lump sum tax declaration. So that would mean somebody who's coming in, let's just say you've already got your Portuguese passport residency and you're living in Portugal or living elsewhere, you would have to do one-off reallocation of all your assets in terms of your personal assets to one, what we call cantons or provinces, and then they would calculate a lump sum tax that you'd pay to then get automatic residency. And then within, it depends on the cantons because it's federal, so every province has its own rules. Between 3 and 5 years, you can then apply for Swiss nationality and then get your Swiss passport.
Interesting. And how much taxation would that be on average?
It depends on because the tax here is not federal; it's province by province. So, giving the example of where I live, which is Canton Zug, just outside of Zurich, we would have between 5 and 8% tax for somebody who's coming in to do that. But there are other cantons which are smaller, which have lower tax rates. But obviously, it then depends on your lifestyle, because I'll give you an example. There's a canton called Appenzell, which is in the mountains, not much there. If you'd become a resident there, you're very far away from anything. But for some people, that's fine. For others, they want to be closer to cities.
And to qualify as a resident, as a tax resident, is it the same as some other countries, 183 days or more, or is there any other differentiation?
The standard is that, but with every canton, every province is fighting for individuals who are the high net individuals, and they allow for exceptions. So I'll give an example. One of my former bosses, he's got Swiss residency in the canton of Vaud, but he lives 90% of his time in the US. But he's got an exception because obviously he in the area he lives, he's a significant part of that tax revenue they get.
Okay, makes sense. And you said the lump sum route sounds to be the more expensive one. And what's the cheaper route?
The cheaper route would be to take the tax residency, and then you'd have to do the 5 years of that tax residency. Then you'd be able to apply for Swiss nationality.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So you would start out as not as an investor in that case. It would be more around the work permit or more around the business opening or something like that.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. Go
I
ahead, Vasco.
understand also there are some cantons around Zurich where plus value taxes are zero on selling real estate properties.
That is correct. That is correct. There are some that don't have any tax
So
on
you
resale.
you can buy whatever and sell whatever, make all the profits and no and pay zero taxes. Correct?
That is correct.
Yeah.
And that also applies to gifting, because that's something that some people do, is because, as I was saying, it's not a market that you're going to get. Obviously, the price appreciation at the moment over the past 10 years has been phenomenal. But in terms of your ROI, it's relatively 3 to 4% is what you're going to get, but it's very stable. So there are families who purchase property and then they'll gift it to their children whilst they're alive. And obviously with that, there's a zero tax, whereas in other areas you get the gift tax, etc.
Makes sense. Definitely,
And
Vasco. Definitely worth a trip to Switzerland.
yeah, no,
You're more than welcome. I'd love to have you guys and show
I
you
came
around.
I came across this and I was really surprised because we have a property for sale. Actually, what we're selling is a company, one of these cantons that don't pay taxes. So because it's a European, it's kind of a established, uh, known placed, established company, whatever. In
Known
the
haven.
yeah, so it's not considered any kind of strange.
Not a blacklisted place,
Yeah,
I guess.
not blacklisted. So
Blacklisted, yeah.
Yes, yeah.
you can actually sell the company there. You don't pay any extra taxes in Portugal because it's just a Swiss company. Period.
Yeah.
But because it's located on this particular canton, and I was surprised
Yeah.
because normally it's the properties under these companies are high value, always
That's
over
right.
millions up. And it's easy. It was interesting actually.
Yeah. It's awesome.
All right, interesting. Timothy, it seems you have got several clients already right here.
Yes, that's
Thank you so much for the presentation. Since we are delayed with the time, so Rahim, you'll have to be really quick. So let me
sure.
introduce you in short. Rahim is here to discuss the newly launched Fund 7X and the team's track record and investment strategies. He is the president and the CEO of the Lakhani Group as well, and has operated multi-million-dollar portfolio of properties in Portugal, Canada, USA, and in India. So, Rahim, the forum is all yours, and thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much, Afsana, for the kind introduction. No, truly impressed by the experience that we have on board. In fact, I always say that these webinars are less for the presenters and more for me to learn. So I truly learn from your experiences, and definitely will connect with and I encourage the viewers to also connect with the individual presenters so that they can get more knowledge out of it. And knowledge is currency today. So with that, I'd like to talk just a few seconds about our investment fund as well. I mean, on the same topic actually, Timothy, of taxes. The Portuguese venture capital fund, which is what we call as 7X here, is exactly structured for that very reason of taxation. So the best part about the investment fund is that it gets you the golden visa as an investment. So $500,000 into the investment fund gets you the golden visa. We invest in a wide variety of portfolios like hotels, resorts, commercial entities, retail ventures. Gives you a good return on your investment. And the best part is that when it comes to a personal taxation, it's just zero. So no capital gains. If you invested, let's say, in a physical property, there would be a capital gains of 25% on the profits. There will be there will be an income tax during the lifetime, of another 25% on the income, assuming that you have, no other income in Portugal. So Portugal itself is a tax-heavy country when you look at it as a personal view. but utilizing structures that as venture capital investment fund, this is where you kind of get into the territory of no taxation. So this is exactly why we partner up with international investors and fund managers and consultants and advisors like you guys, is because the solutions are available in Portugal as well, and amidst the regulation. So in 2022, earlier this year, we had a regulation that Vasco explained, no longer Lisbon and Porto investments for residential properties. Well, bit of a news is that the investment funds can still invest in the Portuguese market, in the prime areas of Lisbon and Porto, in the residential properties, and still have the investors qualify for the golden visa. So, when there is a regulation, there is always an exception. And this is where the exception comes in, so that they don't own it directly, they don't pay the capital gains directly or none, and still be eligible for the golden visa, still have a very strong asset class in their portfolio that will grow. And when you are in Lisbon or you are in Porto, the asset is actually, even during a recession or a downturn, which we don't foresee the same way as in the US or Canada, for example, right now, the market, even if it drops, it's not going to drop at the same rate as, let's say, in the interior of Portugal. So that's a huge difference. In the interior, like Vasco explained, some counties have maybe 50 people per square kilometer. I mean, that's risky to us. So when we go out to the interior investments, we look out for strategic places as well. But we try to also stick to Lisbon because that's where the core market is, and that's where the investor protection truly lies. Because we have investors coming in from 10 different nationalities, and they don't know anything except for Lisbon. When you say Portugal, Lisbon is the only city that a lot of people know, and that's really all of Portugal for some people. So you don't want to kind of steer them in that direction also, right? So investment funds are the perfect vehicle right now that a lot of developers are also utilizing for capitalizing on the market and still going ahead with residential project. So this is very simply said. In terms of a summary that I have in front of you, though, our venture capital fund is a 25 million euro venture capital fund. It's a 7-year term, and during that 7-year term, the term is actually matching exactly with your European passport issuance, so that by the time you are done with your investment, you are eligible to apply for a European passport. And we target at a 7% annual. However, that is a target. If you look at the track record of our investments, we have gone way above that target. So, but 7% is what we are very comfortable in stating to our investors. And our asset management fee is only 1% of the AUM. The best part of the investment fund, and the reason why some of your investors should work with us, is we have a very high hurdle rate. So 30% is our hurdle rate, which means that until and unless we reach the 30%, the Lakhani group, the asset manager, is actually not making any profits apart from the 1% fee. So the idea behind this is that investor first. Let first the investor makes the money. We reach the hurdle point, and only after that we will have a split of 30-70 in the favor of the investor. So that's essentially the makeup of the investment fund. We are raising the capital until July next year. We're constantly raising capital. I had a very successful trip to the United States just now, and there's a lot of appetite of foreign investments from the US. And we're looking forward to this and to several other projects like the Quinta project that Vasco mentioned earlier as well, and you mentioned Tim as well. We have the options for several investors that fits the business model. Okay, back to you, Afsan.
All right. Thank you so much, Rahim, for being quick. Sorry, it was towards the end of the webinar. So yes, everyone, thank you so much, panelists, attendees, and the amazing team behind making this webinar a great success. If there's any other questions before I end up the webinar from Vasco or from Tim for Rahim? No, all good? Okay.
I did a perfect presentation.
So yes, I hope it was an insightful and educational webinar for everyone. Thank you so much for being there. Take care. Ciao.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.